Want to learn about strokes for soft pastel? Well, here you go. I'm going to show you some of the most important strokes to master, and maybe more importantly, how the hardness or softness of your pastel stick affects the marks you make. Of course, I go a lot deeper into details and techniques on my Patreon, but you'll definitely get the basics here. All right, so this first stroke I'm making is called scumbling, when you just use the flat side or the long side of the pastel and just move it around the paper kind of randomly. And you can see there how the amount of pressure that's applied makes a big difference with what your mark ends up looking like. So you want to make sure as you're scumbling that you're paying attention to the pressure that you're applying. Now I'm bringing a pink in over top of that blue to show you how layering works with scumbling. And as you can see, that paper color showing through where I used less pressure with my blue pastel and then my pink pastel. So scumbling creates some really cool effects when you start to layer it. Now I've switched to a square pastel and I'm using that long corner and just touching it to the paper to make a straight line. And you can also use the short corner if you need shorter lines. And you can also use this technique to make curved lines, which isn't something you probably would think of with a straight edge. Now it's not perfect, but it's a great foundation if you're wanting to make something that is curved. Of course, I go much deeper into all the techniques I use in this lesson inside my Pastel Growth Studio on Patreon. My members not only get full lessons, but also full product evaluations, step-by-step how-tos for your most pressing pastel questions, fun monthly challenges, and behind-the-scenes looks. I would love to welcome you to the family. I'm offering a 7-day free trial, and it's only $5 a month after that. I'll put the link in the description. Now let's take a look at my favorite stroke. If you follow my channel, you probably see me doing this quite a bit, and I call it the flick. And when you're using a square pastel, you can use that same long corner that you're using to make lines, but instead you start with a line, but then you flick it. And this is such a useful mark, especially when you bring in another color on top of it. So I use this type of flick mark to create all kinds of things like tree trunks and plant stems. You can also use the flat side of the pastel. You're not going to get as clean of an edge, but it's a little more organic. And of course, you'll want to practice this in all different directions. You're not limited to using a flat pastel either, or a square pastel. Here I'm using a round one and getting the same type of mark. And the last two marks that I make are variations on lines. So I will use the tip of my pastel and roll it on the paper, and this creates a much more organic, natural type of line instead of a straight line. And then you can also use the tip or the corner of a hard pastel to create lines through flicking, and this is great for creating grass and whiskers and other things like that. I know this was a super short video. In the full lesson on Patreon, I also cover things like pressure, layering, pastel hardness and softness, and how all those things interact with your marks. But if this was helpful for you, please share it with your pastel friends. And as always, thanks for tuning in, and I'll see you next time. Take care.